I'm taking Lisa's spot as the golden child. I'm going to be the guy.
You can have it. They're dead to me.
Lisa's going to be starting her own after this.
Exactly.
Out there.
If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate market conditions, trends, news, and industry challenges, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole here with Byron Lazine and Lisa Chinatti, and we have a packed show here today. Zillow President Susan Daimler is out at Zillow. We're going to talk about that. We've also got Lawrence Yun decided to come out of his foxhole and make some predictions about housing again and collect his fat check from NAR. So congratulations, Lawrence, on hitting the direct deposit this week. But first, we're going to lead with NAR facing another lawsuit. So there's an antitrust accusation over the three-way membership agreement. This story hit the middle of the week. So the lawsuit was filed in Los Angeles by John Diaz, a broker at UHOO Real Estate Services, who's representing himself. I don't know about that decision. That typically doesn't go well. But and the defendants are NAR, the California Association of Realtors, the Lodi Association of Realtors, and the Metro List MLS. And the suit claims that the defendants have established an exclusionary practice requiring brokers to join multiple associations, NAR, CAR, and LAR, the local, national, and state associations, to gain access to the MLS service providers, specifically Metro List, which are essential for conducting real estate transactions. This, to me, is a pretty relevant lawsuit. I know when everything kind of dropped, I met with my attorney in the office here, and we've got the same thing where we are. We've got to join the Tri-County Board of Realtors. If you're in the city, it's GPAR, the Greater Philadelphia area, whichever one you join. Then you got to join the state, PAR. Then you got to join the national just to get MLS access. And we're part of Bright, the second largest MLS in the country. There's a lot of merit to this. And I'm clear this has some legs. Lisa, I want to go to you first because I know you sent this out to a couple text groups we're part of, and you said it's about time was kind of the message that I read, or not surprising. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I'll let you explain. This one could do some damage here. What do you think, Lisa?
100%. I think I'm shocked it's taken this long for this lawsuit to pop up. I know that it's something that I think the three of us have discussed on the pod in the past. I sit under a very similar agreement in New Hampshire where it's not that I can't join the MLS, but I can either pay the $700 a year to NAR and HAR and then a local board, or I can pay something like $1,000 a month to have access to the MLS, which is prohibitive. And thus the only way that I can really conduct business up there is by joining NAR and all of the other associations and following their rules. And so I don't have that requirement in Massachusetts. And the really interesting thing is that I've paid fines because of NAR practices that I don't believe in, right? And so I've had to pay fines in order to actually be a part of the MLS, which should be very, very separate than the National Association of Realtors. And it's forcing me to do my business and potentially take on some liability. And so I think it was about time that it happened. I agree. I don't know, is Mr. Diaz an attorney or is he just Google educated?
It says he's a broker at UHOO Real Estate Services. I'll do a little research here as you continue. I hope he's an attorney because it's like going for sale by owner in a lawsuit is not usually a good idea. I mean, I have some concerns about that, but keep going.
Yeah, well, no, I absolutely. I mean, I think it's interesting because, when you think about like what shook out with the Catchmark case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Catchmark took it to make a bunch of money. And I think that there is the potential that there is a segment of real estate agents who feel like they've been forced into these agreements, who would absolutely join into class action status to recoup. Now, maybe it's that the NAR fees that we've all been forced to pay don't match the commissions that consumers have been forced to pay. But I'm shocked that we haven't seen a major class action lawsuit pop up to this point.
So I'm on John Diaz's LinkedIn profile right now. I'm not seeing anything about him being an attorney. He's an associate broker with Fathom Realty. He's also a real estate broker with UHOO Real Estate Services. It's apparently a real estate technology startup, and he's a broker there. He's been with Exit in the past, so I'm not seeing anything here about a legal background.
So interesting, right? Because my personal opinion is that there could be some teeth to this, right? Like agents, consumers, however you look at us, right? We are consumers of NAR or any of our state and local associations. I don't think that we should have to join one, you have to join all three. And I think that that's a mistake. I think that there should be some choices about whether there is a local association that I like, but I wouldn't necessarily want to have to join the national association or the state association. So I think that there's teeth to it. It I think would be better if we had somebody who had a real true legal background who could navigate it versus somebody who doesn't, who might be doing it for a little bit of attention.
Byron, what do you think about this? I mean, you've been following this story. You talk about it all the time. I tend to agree with Lisa. I want to get your take.
I mean, I don't have to rehash it. My overall take is, tie-in agreements are essentially illegal everywhere else. They're not seemingly illegal in our world. This has been challenged in the past, going much further back, hasn't gone anywhere. I don't think this guy representing himself has much teeth. I think the overall argument of the case that is being made could have teeth if it has the right momentum behind it. A couple of things I'll just note. NAR this week, coming out of NAR Next, which was up in Lisa's neck of the woods in Boston, they had announced that they basically went out and got outside counsel to defend themselves against antitrust lawsuits. So they know that, there's more of these coming. And so I think where it gets
the other one, right?
Well, there's already a few of them. I think
Alabama sent a letter to NAR asking it to end the three-way agreement, and there's also two other antitrust lawsuits. The one in Michigan that we talked about, that was in August, and the other was let me see here, it's in Pennsylvania actually, with the Greater Lehigh Valley MLS. That's a little further north from us. They filed a complaint in the U.S. District Court that civil rights statutes and unlawful discriminatory practices where they're breaching their contracts and monopolistic systems. So there's definitely some headwinds here in a couple other states for sure.
Well, I almost want to say that Michigan one was also defending themselves. I don't know if you can.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, take a look. But I, for some reason, I feel like I've heard somebody else was defending themselves, or representing themselves rather, because they're NAR is going to be the one defending themselves. But anyways, the outside counsel announcement that was made this week coming out of Next was a signal that NAR knows more of these lawsuits are heading their direction. And so, is it going to just be small brokerages, or is there going to be a coalition that's formed between some of the more, powerful brokerages that really go after this tie-in agreement? I think you'd have to have that kind of movement for this thing to break up. Right now, NAR is at the fourth all-time highest number of members. The fourth highest. Wow. Numbers have gone up this year on membership, over 1.5 million, which I think if you polled the industry on January 1st, most people would have said, and we'll be coming out with our predictions, what we were right on and wrong on in December, at the end of the month, because we did some of these, predictions last year at the end of the year. But if you polled most agents, they would have had a belief that NAR membership was going to plummet this year. It went up. It's reached the fourth highest level. This is the tie-in agreement is the main thing that keeps those numbers elevated. Just think about how many agents inside of NAR, unfortunately, because of the standard in our industry, don't do any business, like no business at all. But because of the tie-in agreement, they are, required at this point to, pay for local, state, and NAR to have access to the MLS. If you're going to have your license and not have the MLS, what the heck's the point? And so a lot of the dues are being propped up. Now, remember, NAR dues is less than $200. Okay. I think it's 156 or something like that. It's,
Mm-hmm.
so when you look at what you're paying, on these tie-in agreements, there might be an argument that some people would actually give up maybe their local board
Yeah.
and keep NAR for advocacy. Okay, I could see a lot of agents making that. Hey, I'll pay the $156 for advocacy and the lobbying efforts that take place, historically, and not pay local. Maybe they're not getting value locally, or vice versa. You could have some agents that would choose. I think, obviously, I'm on the side of having choice and not being restricted. This becomes monopolistic when, in order to subscribe to your MLS, you're a licensed agent. You have a real estate salesperson or broker's license, and you can't access MLS without a number of up to 3 other association memberships. That becomes very restrictive.
I think the other part of it is that not only is it that, but at the agent level, they can't join a board that their office broker isn't a part of. So if you've got
Right.
multiple local boards in your state, you can only join one where your broker is already a paying member, which I think is also wrong as well.
Yeah, and that would be different probably per state to state rule. Anyways, the numbers would go down. Now, that being said, would that be a bad thing? If you wiped out, call it 30% of NAR's members, okay, so they don't have money for crappy TV commercials that nobody watches and makes zero impact on consumers. Like, you could wipe out a lot of members and still have money for the important stuff that NAR does. There is a level of excess that's really apparent when you dig deep into what NAR spends. I mean, we're going to talk about Lawrence Yune's predictions coming up. You mentioned he's coming out of the foxhole. I mean, he talks about the real estate economy and the market, once or twice a month, and he's making over $800,000. I know he's doing work behind the scenes. I'm not trying to completely disparage his standing, but real estate, or I'm sorry, communications has changed so dramatically in this new media world. And when I think I mentioned it on, maybe Real Word Pod, or maybe, I didn't mention it last week because I hadn't had the meeting yet, or the conversation yet at NAR Next. I had a conversation with an NAR employee who was proud that on webinars they're getting anywhere from 300 to 1,000 people, and I was frankly embarrassed for her when she said that. I mean, we could drum up 300 people in 5 minutes with an Instagram story from the broke agent, and so it was like, really, that you're clearly missing what's going on here. You have 1.5 million members, and the majority of them, 99% of them, are tuning your message out. And so you're proud of these webinars, but you're speaking into an echo chamber of a very select few that are even listening at this point. And that's the Lawrence Yune thing. It's like, hey, why are you only, having communications come out once a month, twice a month? You should be doing this daily. I mean, we do it
imagine if
every
he did what
day.
you do, right? You do the daily hot sheet, right? I mean, imagine if he came out and he said, hey, this is Lawrence Yune. I'm here with NAR, and I've got your update on the current real estate economy for November 15th, 2024. Like, it would change the way people view NAR in such a good way. I mean, some of the people we've had on the show, right? You got Lance Lambert, right? He's putting out 3 to 4 pieces of content a week.
On X, he's putting out 5, 6
daily.
pieces
I'm just talking about his blogs and everything. Like, if you look at Resi Club, you've got Logan Motoshami, right? He's been on here. He's got a weekly housing market tracker. He's got a podcast he's on. He's constantly tweeting out stuff. These are people that are getting followed by real estate agents when, again, the association has somebody that, and maybe that worked in the 80s and 90s. It's a new playbook now. It's 2024. So you have a great point here.
you can look at the association much like the Democratic Party that lost an election by just like I'm not trying to get political here. I'm saying
You're absolutely right.
the,
There's no question here.
the playbook that they used to lose that election, speaking into an echo chamber and asking for like vetted out questions on interviews, is why they lost trust with independent voters, right? And so, which moved the election the other direction. NAR is losing trust because they want vetted questions. They don't want, Nakia Wright's done a couple of interviews and, and I get it, a lot of lawsuits, a lot of attorneys in their ear, but at some point, you have to speak directly to the members on the platforms that are relevant today. And NAR is doing a really poor job of that. And people feel disenfranchised. They don't feel like they're getting the value. And you're going to see more of these lawsuits pop up. I think until you get a big coalition, though, going back to my previous point, you probably don't see anything happen. It is still a beast, and it's going to be hard to, kind of break this thing up unless you really create a industry civil war type of environment that demands change. And I haven't seen that type of coalition yet.
Well, it kind of comes back to what Jack Miller said, and I've been thinking about that pod we did with him, Byron, where he covered his face and said the association's over here, and that's what a lot of people have done. So that prompted me to reach out to our local board. I know someone over there that I respect from a business acumen that was the former chairman of the Tri-County board, and I said, like, what are the opportunities to get involved? And we'll send you a list. There's task force, disputes, resolution, obviously being on the board. This was the interesting part of the text. Many of those positions are filled by people who start by going to the leadership academy that's offered once a year or identified as persons of interest. So what that tells me is you got to either play ball with them and go through their leadership academy, right? Or a person of interest. I can tell you right now, I would never sign up for a leadership academy. I'm leading a company of 60, 70 people. I've been doing this for 24 years. That's the kind of folks they should be recruiting. Now, in this person's defense, they were open-minded to having a conversation. So it has nothing to do with them. But the last part of that text says it all. And then I see these people in the leadership academy, and it's not the folks that you would hope are making decisions. And I was talking with Brian, our sales manager,
they're not
about
leaders.
This. Well, they're not, right? They're there to be part of the club, right? And I like to be in the club that has a successful business. That's my club. Like that's the club. I'm going to be part of Club 13, right? Like Tom Ferry says, when it comes to real estate agents. So I was talking with Brian, our sales manager, and he ran into this at the auto body business where they had a lot of regulations. They're dealing with like insurance regulators all the time. And he said there was always these people that wanted to get involved and they had great ideas, but they couldn't put them into practice. And then you hear the stuff they're telling folks, and it would be cringeworthy, Lisa and Byron. Like if you would hear some of the business advice they give, it's like, what are you talking about? That's not practical. That's not what actually works. And this is the resistance that NAR is always going to have, because the people there get looked at like someone like me. I'll put myself there. I'm like, well, I'm in the trenches every day. I'm in the arena and I'm seeing this stuff not work, and it's not practical advice. And that's always going to be a challenge until the leadership change. And I don't know how you break that down to your point. It's a big barrier to entry for folks that have successful businesses that want to get involved. You're going to turn a lot of people off with that kind of sunk cost thinking.
Yeah, I think as you dig into, certainly locally, it's easier to identify, who's in the club and who's not on these local associations. And to your point, Tom, in my experience, when I look at these local associations, oftentimes it's not the leaders of the business community who are building the biggest businesses. They tend to not have time to get involved. And then you have, people who maybe shouldn't be making these types of decisions, and it forms a bureaucracy. On the other side, there are cases where I'm in Nashville right now visiting with Gary Ashton's team. Okay. Or they're putting on a few sessions with realtor.com. And Deborah Beagle, who I've mentioned on the pod before. This is for Gary. Gary, if you're listening, Deborah, I was talking to her earlier, CEO of the Gary Ashton team. But she's the managing broker there. That is a total inside joke for Gary. He wants me to start tracking every time I say I talk to a CEO on the pod. So we might have to get a little Gary Ashton
That's one.
billboard tracker.
We'll
going.
get his like head on here and we can pop up the graphics. Like it'll be like a
That
one.
would be amazing.
Like that's, I think he'd be down for that.
I want to actually get his billboard on the show and we can track every CEO mention. But anyways, Deborah is somebody who runs a huge business, right? Like they're in the ballpark of $1 billion in real estate sales per year. So they're a machine. And she's really running that business day to day. Now, she also is involved at the local and national level. She's involved in a group called Residential Real Estate Council. And if you look it up, RRC, which is also CRS, there's kind of like two names. It's a little confusing. But anyways, this association is essentially an association within NAR, okay? But they have a standard in that association. It's 60 closings or more. And so everything that she's passionate about, and some of these real business leaders that have gotten involved, they're passionate about a higher standard. Unfortunately, it's like an association within the association that should be standing for standards, right? Like if NAR took that approach, we're like, hey, you can be an NAR apprentice to a certain point, but then you got to do deals to like be a member, right? That would elevate what the industry looks like. That would take away this, this decade warning that we've had of marginal agents destroying the industry, and we've seen what's happened this year. I think a lot of that has to do with marginal agents and the experience that consumers have had with agents that just don't take it seriously. But I'm just making the case on the other side that there are some leaders in our industry who are real power players who are trying to make change. They've unfortunately had to create all of these mini groups within the big group to actually elevate the standard. And to me, it just keeps growing. I mean, we've got 800 plus board members in NAR. The thing just keeps growing and growing and growing. And at some point, somebody's got to come in there and just Elon Musk the thing and get rid of all the excess.
Can't disagree more or agree more. I agree 100%. I couldn't disagree with a single thing you said, is what I meant. Where did Tom Toole go?
Well, Tom left. You know what, Lisa? I don't think we
just spaced out.
I don't think we actually need him. And we can close that part of the conversation there. I guess I'm back to. I told Tom he does such a great job modding the show that he needs to really do great moderation since I'm on the road in the hotel room.
Peaced out.
I was hoping for a real powerful moderation from Tom.
Here's the moderation. I'm back. It took 1 minute. I got some sick kids at home, right? And I got to attend to the most important stuff here. So
you're in your office.
I understand. I had to go call my wife about something. It was very quick. I was back in a minute.
Byron,
you usually go on for like 15 minutes. I mean, you can't handle a minute without me. Are you kidding me?
Is everything good on the Toole front?
We're all good. We just got a lot of strep throat, hacking on each other.
Oh, God.
Good times.
Let's wrap up that part of the NAR conversation and move to maybe we can segue into more housing predictions, more NAR talk, but different angle with Lawrence Yune's housing predictions.
So here's what Lawrence Yune, this is the $800,000 article that he put together here. So let's go through this. So he came out Wednesday. Did you guys get to see him speak at the NXT conference? Did you guys get a chance to look at that while you were there, Byron?
I did not.
Okay.
I didn't go to the conference. I was just kicking around the socials.
He's so good that you guys both blew it off. So here's some predictions here. So his projection for 2025 home sales was plus 9% year over year, and new home sales plus 11%. His projection for 2026 is plus 13% year over year, plus 8% on new home sales. I'd be pretty excited about that one. What do you think about his home sales prediction? Because I'd love to see 10% more sales, 11%. That would be great for everybody.
Well, if you go to his 30-year fixed projection, he has the 30-year bouncing between 5.5 and 6.5.
Yes.
Which
I don't think it gets to 5.5. I don't think it goes that low next year.
No, I think that right now my consensus is that that's probably true. I mean, that's just obviously a prediction, but let's just say it averages out at 6, which we would all take. We would all take 6%.
100%.
I mean, and listen, I think that's a bullish case too. But if it were to average at 6, which is basically what he's saying it's going to do, then I think 10% on existing home sales would be low. I think it'd be actually, 9% is where he has it at existing home sales. I think it'd be double digits for sure next year in the percentage increase on existing home sales. If we were to hit 6% for the year on the 30-year fix, I mean, I think we'd be 12+%, maybe 15% on existing home sales if the 30-year fix was at 6% for the entire year, because you'd unlock a lot of movement, which would increase, just opportunities for buyers to have more options. Now, whether we get there or not, that's a very bullish case, and it doesn't.
I think that's 2026. I don't think there's any chance that's 2025.
Yeah, I'm not making that case. I'm just kind of saying, I think you'd probably lean for a higher 30-year fixed if you're at 9% on existing home sale increase. 9% is coming off of the worst year,
no doubt,
since 1995 on existing home sales. So, we're all going to take 9%, but I mean, it's coming off of the floor. It's coming off of a really bad year.
I think 9, maybe even 10% is doable without rates hitting that low. But I don't think that we can count on rates to be the driver of it. I believe that there's a ton of pent-up demand. I think that we're also in a time period where if you look back to the folks who purchased in 22, they are not locked in, and their period for capital gains, penalties and stuff is all kind of shaking out. I think that actually represents a really big opportunity to start unlocking the inventory more so than counting on a decrease in rates right now.
I agree with you there. I mean, you look at his prediction. We've seen where like Wells Fargo and Mortgage Bankers Association, they're all 5.5 is the best case scenario for next year. And if we can learn anything from this year, mortgage rates are more unpredictable than you realize. How many years in a row have we seen incorrect predictions about rates? They were supposed to go up. They were supposed to go down. I don't see it happening, given the spread on the 30 and the 10-year. It's got to improve dramatically. I do agree that I think we're going to see a pop in sales just because we have to. We're coming off the lowest year ever. And I think there's more certainty in the economy right now. Post-election, people know what's coming. We've already seen inventory increase in our market here. I know you guys are seeing that as well, but maybe not Connecticut, Byron, but certainly other places. So, and some you can't stop your life, right? Like at some point, these people are going to move. Like kids get bigger, they don't get smaller. If you're getting divorced and you're in the house, you're going to sell the house. Like, and that stuff's going to continue to happen. So that to me is the reason we're going to see more salespeople just held off, and you can only hold on so long before you have to make a real estate decision in some cases.
How about the price projection? So he thinks plus 2% increase into 2025. I think that's a little low. I think it's going to be bigger than 2%.
It depends on the market, Lisa, right? I mean, you're in Florida. I think 2% is probably realistic, right? And these national numbers are so screwy. So you got to understand what's going on in your local market. For the knowledge brokers out there, the national stuff's great. You got to know what's happening in your county, in your metro area. So for our markets in Boston and Philadelphia, I agree it is going to be low. I would anticipate more like 4 would be kind of, if I was going to give you a number, like that 3 to 5 range historically is what we've seen year over year. But certainly places like Florida, Texas, right? I mean,
that's what's gonna pull the number down, because they're such, they're bigger states than the ones that have the low inventory. The low inventory states, Northeast states, some of these Midwest states that have really low inventory right now are going to outperform 2%. But I mean, Gulf Coast of Florida, Austin, Texas, there's places that could be in the negatives next year. I mean, the Gulf Coast of Florida will be in the negatives when you look year over year on price appreciation. But I mean, 2% is like it's a
throwaway.
It's such a throwaway number, because it's like, oh, if I look at the average over however many years, and it's like it's just like he's not taking a real stance either way. I mean, he's probably within a percentage point of his last 20 predictions, so he's not really making a big statement there. One thing I'll say about the rates, just going back to that real quick, is you saw this week Jerome Powell came out, I think it was in Dallas, and made comments that no rush to, lower rates again, or we're not going to rush to do it next meeting in December is essentially what he said. And what happened this week, you see that the 10 years back up over 4.4. We have a 7 handle on the 30-year fix, according to Mortgage News Daily. The 10-year reacted to those Powell comments. And it's going to be really interesting, the tug of war between the Fed and President Trump, when President-elect Trump, once he gets in, because if this was January 21st, what's inauguration date? January 20th. If this is the 21st and Powell made those comments, you better believe Trump is lighting him up on some X post within hours.
Minutes.
Like he's going to go crazy because he wants to, stimulate the economy. And there's going to be a real battle. And I think Jerome Powell really tries to not engage. And he's going to probably take this position similar to the comments that he just made this week, of caution, and really try to slow any pressure of cutting down, which could keep going into the early part of this year, the long-term rate high. And if we're closer to 7 for the first quarter, it's really going to take a significant move down at some point in Q2 or Q3 to get close to an average of 6. So I think it'll be interesting to see what that tug of war looks like. And I guess there's, Jerome Powell says that legally he can't be removed. Who knows what happens?
Trump appointed him. People forget about this. Trump appointed Jerome Powell. So it's all very interesting. To your point, Byron, I love tracking this CME group Fed rate watch. It's
what did it do today?
Chart. Well, it's down to 58.7% that we see a probability of a 25 basis point decrease. And
I look at this, Tom, on the hot sheet every day. It was over 80% just 24 hours ago. So now with
that's where I was going with it.
With Powell's comments, it obviously moved.
Yeah, and I think it's, this is so flexible. Now, what's going to be interesting is we get the jobs numbers. We see what's going on with some of the CPI data. That's going to really tell the tale more than anything else. The jobs report's the one thing that makes me a little nervous because they always revise it, right? They revised it by over 30% in August. And now we had those couple of strong months of job reports in September and October. So, they promised 25 basis points of cuts more, 50 total. They hit 25 in November. We'll see if they go in December. There is going to be a tug of war. You're absolutely right. And I don't think President Trump's going to hold back. He's going to say something even if they don't make cuts the next time. He's going to be out there. I mean, he's moving fast, and he wants to get this economy going again.
Here's maybe a conspiracy theory. Maybe not. Maybe this isn't
Get
a
out
stretch.
The tinfoil hat, Byron. Let's see it.
Boy,
maybe this is not a stretch, but if Elon, with his Doge, Department of Government Efficiency, that they've started.
What a great department. I mean, I efficiency in the government, those two words never go together.
I wish I had the Doge meme coin because it shot up after this,
I still have that from T360. It's sitting in my office.
No, T360 was not Doge. We got
No, we got Dogecoin. That's exactly what we got. Oh, no, we got Shiba Inu. No, we got Shiba Inu. You're right.
We got some other crap coin. Thanks, T360. You should have gotten us Doge.
Yeah.
Should have gotten us Doge back then. But anyways, if Elon is successful going in and cutting out the excess in government, essentially laying off tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of government employees, and does that maybe push unemployment up, and Powell has no choice but to move rates down? Is this all maybe this is all a move?
Oh my gosh.
To get rates down by having the unemployment numbers shoot up through layoffs of government employees.
Your grin is too much about this one.
Well, I think, heck, I don't want to see people lose jobs to get the 30-year fixed down. I've said that weekly for
Yeah, no, I don't think any of
2
us want to
years.
see
None of
people
us
lose
do.
jobs. I mean, that's
Right.
been very clear on the
But
pod.
if it's removing excess government jobs to get the 30-year fixed down, I could get behind that. I think I could get behind that in a lot of different ways. I think there's a lot of jobs that, we could put great people to work. These are hardworking people, I'm sure. But they could find a job in the private sector. It might take 6 months, and in that 6-month period, we get the 30-year fixed down, and we get the economy rock and rolling, and the government humming along, and maybe the deficit. I don't know. Maybe these all sound like good ideas. Maybe you think I'm insane. You can let me know if you think I'm insane in the
Is
comment
Byron
section
insane
on
in the
YouTube.
comments? We want to see a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Okay, just insane, yes or no. Very
Yeah,
simple, guys.
that could be possible.
Oh boy.
There's a lot of merit to what you're talking about in the government jobs. I mean, that seems to be the reaction from consumers. I mean, I get people asking me at appointments, why are rates going up? And, what's happening with them? And when I share this jobs data, it becomes very clear to folks when you actually break it down. And that's what knowledge brokers need to be able to do, because I think some consumers are confused right now by what's happening here.
Well,
I
because
think a lot of
consumers,
consumers are confused. Not some, a lot.
well, they're
Okay.
confused, and they also don't feel like the economy is as strong as Jerome Powell's talking about it being. Oh, the economy's growing, the economy's strong. We can't cut rates because it's so strong. But the number one or number two hire every single month of new jobs is the government. So we're borrowing to stimulate this economy at a level that's just unprecedented. And Jerome Powell said himself, a week ago, we can't maintain this pace of deficit growth, and something will have to change. And so maybe that gets addressed, maybe it doesn't, but
we'll see. Well, speaking of jobs, Susan Daimler just lost her job. The
Womp,
former,
womp, womp.
it was, and I've
by
seen Susan
choice
speak
though,
a couple
right?
times.
She stepped down.
She stepped down. I'm always skeptical when I hear people, hey, I'm stepping down. Remember the KW leadership that stepped down and they're suing each other all over the place? It was Josh Team, I think was his name. So Susan Daimler stepped down, and she's been the president since early 2021. She was formerly the GM and senior vice president at Zillow. She's been with them a while. We saw her speak years ago at a Tom Ferry Team Plus event in New York City when they were rolling out Flex and got everyone riled up. And, so the in her role as president, she was, pretty, I thought pretty forward facing for the company.
Exceptionally.
And she was out there. I mean, I know I got to see her speak last year at Zillow Unlocked. She talked about the acquisition of Follow Up Boss. In the statement from Zillow CEO Jeremy Waxman, he thanked her. Big surprise. Her husband also worked there as a senior VP of product, who's also stepping down. They'd been there for 12 years. So the statement was really all about the person taking her job, not so much about what she did. The gentleman's name was Vice President Jun Chu, and he's going to be the COO now. He's not really taking their job, but he's getting elevated. And we had some comments through some text groups that we're in, that very, very smart person, knows what they're doing. I appreciated Susan Daimler's straightforwardness, which you don't get from Zillow in a lot of cases. And I voiced this directly to my reps and everybody else there. Here's the comment from Waxman. I want to get your two reaction on this. So June had long been an instrumental leader in our company, consistently creating and scaling innovative solutions across our business. He's been a key driver of numerous technology investments to digitize the industry. Under his leadership, we will expand the integrated transaction experience to more customers, agents, movers, and industry professionals, and offer them a better way to transact in real estate. So what do you guys think about this move here? I mean, Lisa, I sense some skepticism. The second face is appearing. You don't think she actually stepped down. I can tell right now. Tell us your thoughts on this. You're pretty plugged into the portals.
Well, I just think that there'll be something else that comes out about it. I don't think a step down it was sudden, right? And I think it's interesting. I said in one of our text groups, like Susan was one of the last of like an era, and you two were a part of that early era in Zillow where the leadership was very connected to the agent community. And I think it's fascinating because no one who's really stepped up since the transition started, who stepped into leadership, has maintained a connection with the agent community, right? And I think one of the things that I'm super cognizant of with Zillow is that they talk about how their customer is the consumer, right? They don't view agents as customers, which is always just an interesting dynamic. And I know on the pod, we've talked about the difference between Zillow and Realtor.com, where Realtor.com views us as the agents as their customer. Zillow views the consumer as their customer. And so with that, I think that we see a really big difference with the way that the leadership in both companies interact with the agent community, right? You see Damian Eales and the senior leadership of Realtor.com who are very, very present with their agent customers. But Tom, you skipped Unlock. Byron and I were at Unlock a couple of weeks ago.
Gladly
And
skipped
like,
Unlocked.
like good little boys and girls, Tom. We were there.
And senior leadership wasn't as present with some of their biggest partners or their biggest customers, if you will. But Susan was always one of those. Like, I remember going back a couple of years, maybe 2 or 3 years, it was in Vegas, and Susan was down at the gym with the agents, and despite the fact that she was trying to get her workout in, was chatting with all of us and was engaging. And I feel like that's something that Zillow is going to lose with her stepping out.
Well, they've made the decision not to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's they've moved in a different direction. I don't think there's any question about that.
Well, but I think that that's part of my point, though, right? Like, there was somebody who still believed that that relationship was valuable. So for me, it kind of feels sad that that last bit of that relationship is gone. And I think it'll be interesting to kind of watch as the future of Zillow's leadership continues to take shape.
I have a different take on Susan's departure. So
Okay.
I think the departure has been in the background. If you remember at Unlock, Susan and June Chu were on a panel together.
Yep, 100%.
So,
Okay.
that to me signals like, working closely together without announcing it, passing of the baton. Remember, pre-Unlock, Jeremy Waxman was named CEO after Rich Barton stepped down. And I think that's where all of this starts. This is absolutely a guess, so you could put
Totally
the tinfoil hat back on me if you want. But I think once Susan was passed on for CEO, that she's not going to wait around another 5-10 years to become CEO. She's been there 12. The reason she's at Zillow to begin with is she's exited out of 2 companies that Zillow purchased. She was part of the Street Easy acquisition.
Yeah.
And then there was another acquisition as well. That she basically sold 2 companies to Zillow. So, by the way, Susan is going to do she's quite fine on the
100%, no doubt.
On the financial side of the relationship with Zillow. She's done very well for herself. She's a power player. But she's been there 12 years, and to not be the first female CEO, and they give it to Waxman, I think probably stung. And this is me completely guessing. I'm just saying, I think she probably would have been there and stayed with the company if they gave her that position.
I don't necessarily disagree. And I think maybe you and I are on the same page, because I do think that that is part of the details that will shake out on this, maybe never publicly, right? And hey, look, I'll wear this face proudly. I believe that there needs to be more female leadership across the real estate industry, across the board. You look at this
I totally agree with that.
In the lower levels, and it is very female dominated at the agent community. But when you start getting up into the senior leadership in brokerages, in the tech companies, in the portals, in everything else, it is predominantly male driven.
So she seems like she would have been an obvious choice. They give it to Jeremy Waxman. I mean, what I guess I thought I was maybe hearing in your first analysis of this was that maybe she was asked to leave, and I'm just taking the position that I think this is all speculation here, but I'm taking the position that I think she's like, I'm leaving if I'm not going to be the CEO, because this should have been mine.
Yeah, I don't think that she was necessarily asked to leave, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that it was a parting because it was like a natural end. How about that? I think if you go back to the pod where Jeremy Waxman was announced, I think all 3 of us in particular were like, I feel like that was a burn, right? For her not to be appointed into that position. So I think my thing isn't maybe that she was asked to leave, but I don't think it was potentially the way that she would have wanted it to go. How about that?
Yeah.
Better way to say it?
Yeah, you see this in sports all the time, right? Like the new GM gets hired and they fire the coach, right? Or just that maybe the coach doesn't vibe with the new person in charge. And I think that's a
That
great
could be
example. And
part
look,
of it.
the same thing happened when Rich Barton came back and replaced Spencer Raskoff. There was a very big house. I mean, Greg Schwartz, someone we all know, right? He was gone pretty quickly thereafter, and he had grown the company when he was working with Spencer. So this is a historical thing that happens with leadership in large organizations, businesses, and otherwise.
And Lisa, to your point of there's just not enough female leadership in the industry, this was an opportunity to put somebody into that position who was certainly capable,
100%.
qualified without
Without a doubt.
question for the job. And so it is a little bit puzzle. Now, I don't believe in just putting, any female or male into a position that they're not qualified for. That wouldn't have been the case here. She was, Zillow definitely is more, DEI mindset than maybe any other company besides Redfin in the industry. So it's actually shocking that they wouldn't take an obviously qualified person, because they don't have somebody now in leadership that's like the obvious, if they want to, go first female CEO of their tenure in 5 years after, I don't know of an obvious choice that would have stood out like Susan.
No, it would have been an amazing opportunity for a leader in the industry to continue leading the way. That's my last take on that. I think I said it back then, I'll own it again now. It was a miss not to do that. And I think just the relationships that she could have maybe continued to make deeper within the industry. I think she would have done an amazing job doing that. She's softer, if that makes sense. She has a softer touch to it and a softer approach, and I think was very, very highly respected.
She's also very, for as, the softer touch, but she's also when she wants to make a point, she makes a point.
She's a badass. Don't get me wrong.
Okay, all right, because I get the sense that when I listen to her, it's like she takes a side of what her position is, and it's very clear what
so maybe soft isn't quite the right word. She's a badass, but she just delivers the messaging in I don't know, maybe soft isn't, maybe it's relatable as opposed to soft.
She's very polished.
She's polished. That's not the word I'm looking for, though. It's just you meet her and you're instantly like, I respect her, I like her, she's somebody that I want to get to know more.
I think that's called charisma, might be the better word.
Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. I don't know.
Approachable. I don't know. There's a lot
She's
of things.
Definitely more approachable.
Well, and you look at some of these, and I think that a lot of people feel this way, is that the agent partnerships, they've helped grow the company as much as Zillow says that the customer, the consumers are our avatar. They're working pretty heavily with you, Lisa. They're working pretty heavily with all three of us here, and you'd like to see a little more of that relationship business. And as a leader, what I've learned is that relationships are just as important as how you run the company, and making people feel good about that. So that's an important factor here.
What I'm looking forward to is Chinatti being named the first female CEO of Zillow at some point down the road, and then we just throw a Knowledge Brokers podcast in the private jet. We just go ham on the bourbon in the jet and throw a pod right in that. Not for you, but for me and Tom.
Lisa likes the vodka, so we'll get her the clear stuff.
The clear stuff, yeah.
If Lisa became CEO of Zillow in the future, Tom, how quickly would she abandon our friendship? Would we be just on the outs?
So we would it would be like Susan. We'd be stepping down from the friendship with Lisa Chinatti. It would be a forced exit. It would be on Inman News. Actually, probably on BAM. It would be on Inman. And Knowledge Brokers, we'd have to replace her with somebody else. It would be.
How long would it take for Lisa to leave the conversation on our text group?
She wouldn't leave. She would change her number like she did. She would go to a third phone number now because she already did that once. And she would go to a third phone number, mystery number.
A Seattle area code.
She would keep keep texting us. Have like her assistant Kirsten text us, and you could clearly tell it's not her. Like saying nice things, asking how you're doing. Not the usual comments that we
Hey,
get. So I think it would be about 5 seconds would be the
Damien,
answer.
you better
Oh
watch
my
out.
God.
You better watch out if Lisa becomes CEO of Zillow, Damien. I would I'd love to see those fireside chats.
Oh my God. All right. I have a hard stop. I have an L10.
Yeah.
I do as well.
Making Lisa very uncomfortable all of a sudden.
We found out the
That's a
master
weird
plan.
one.
We uncovered it here. See you guys next week.
All right, guys. See ya. On August 17th, the rules of the game changed. You know that. And now there is more opportunity than ever for the best agents to capture market share. Talking about the agents who are true knowledge brokers, expert advisors to their clients, and masters of the craft. You're one of those agents. That's why you're here. Or if you want to be one of those agents, one thing you need to do right now is invest in your client experience. We all have CRMs, but CRMs are designed to nurture and convert leads. You can't treat your clients like leads. That's one of the biggest reasons agents lose referrals and repeat business. What you need is a CEP, a client experience platform, to give your clients the best digital experience possible. The CEP my team and I use is Mosaic. Mosaic kicks in when a lead becomes a client, providing a seamless experience from search to closing, transaction management to long-term client retention. It gives you all of the tools you need to impress your clients and showcase your value, helping you generate more referrals, repeat business, and client loyalty. Mosaic is a huge competitive advantage for agents, but spots are limited in each market, and some are already full. Head to mosaic.io, or click the link in the description to see if there's any availability in your market. Don't miss your chance to build a lasting edge over the competition. At BMX, we listen to what real estate professionals want and need. That's why our platform is filled with sought-after courses, content, and tactical assets for your business. And that's why we launched BMX in a box with templates and scripts done for you, delivered each Friday. The best part? It's not coming from panel pontificators who bought their followers and don't sell any real estate. It's coming from top agents, team leaders, and content creators in the industry. It's education that actually shows you how to do what you need in today's market. And now it includes editable templates and scripts so you can easily deliver that knowledge to your database. Every day, we continue to add more content into BMX, into our private Facebook community, content that works, content that our members have exclusive access to daily. Do not wait any longer. Use code KNOWLEDGEBROKERS and join the thousands of agents taking their business to the next level today. Use Knowledge Brokers for 10% off. See you in BMX.